the vivo X80 Pro, the predecessor to last year's popular X70 Pro Plus, except that we don't have the Plus anymore, and this one can certainly take some very good pictures. So how much improvement do we get from Vivo's newest flagship, especially in terms of imaging capabilities? Here are the 8 things that stand out to me about the X80 Pro. Let's start with the first one, the camera module. Honestly, I have to say that this is one of the most spec out camera modules on any phone. On the back, we have a 50 megapixel main camera with a big underlying sensor that is custom made by Vivo, a 48 megapixel ultra wide camera letting you capture wide scenery, a 12 megapixel portrait camera with some interesting portrait effects, as well as an 8 megapixel telephoto periscope camera for snapping images of something that is really far away. All of these cameras are powered by Vivo's self-designed V1 Plus imaging chip. And in addition to that, we also have the ZAS T-Star coating on the back. So for people who didn't know, ZAS has been partnering with Vivo for quite a few years now, and this T-Star coating greatly reduces flares and ghosting seen in your photos, especially in nighttime shots. Here are some examples in comparison to my iPhone so we can see how the T-Star coating really helps. Secondly, the image quality. With all this amazing hardware, the photos must be amazing, right? Well, yes, but not completely yes. Let me explain. In daylight conditions, the X80 Pro produces great images with 4 different focal lenses to choose from. If you compare it to the X70 Pro Plus, you will notice the X80 Pro's improvement in terms of white balance, which makes the image look a lot more natural. And every single image just looks a little better and sharper on the X80 Pro until I came across these 2 photos. For some reason, the periscope camera on the X80 Pro looks a lot worse than the X70 Pro Plus. Wow, that is so disappointing. I think what you meant by improvement is actually a negative improvement. Well, that's not the full story here. You see, if you move your camera too close to an object, the camera can no longer focus on the object. So to compensate for that, smartphones usually switch to a wider camera and crop it to mimic a telephoto look for your photo. And the quality would obviously be much worse than an actual telephoto camera. In this case, I'm holding the phone too close to the kitty and the switching mechanism seems to be lagging behind and isn't very sensitive. On the other hand, if we take a photo of something that is far away, then the photo will switch to the actual telephoto camera, and in this case, the X80 Pro beats its predecessor as well. I hope Vivo can improve this switching mechanism as soon as possible, since this will greatly affect the user experience. Also, the X80 Pro can intelligently identify different people in a group shot to make adjustments to each face independently. But I can't test it for you since I don't have any friends. Okay, on to the third point. While the phone performs great in daytime conditions, nighttime photography is where the X80 Pro really shines, especially with the V1 Plus chip inside. Here's a controlled nighttime indoor comparison between the X80 Pro and the X70 Pro Plus, and I think the X80 Pro does a better job. While the X70 Pro Plus does look brighter, it just looks a little too bright for a nighttime shot, as the colors are a little off and oversaturated. On the other hand, the X80 Pro may seem not so bright, but it has a more accurate white balance, maintaining a more natural contrast and color to the image. When we take these phones out to capture some exterior nighttime shots, the results are pretty similar. Another cool feature is this phone's ability to shoot videos in low light situations. Again, it is clear that the X80 Pro manages to create a better image thanks to the V1 Plus chip inside. However, keep in mind that this only works in 1080p at 30 frames per second. Number 4, Zeiss. Vivo has been partnering with Zeiss since the X60 series, and there are some features that are very fun to play with. Other than the Zeiss T-Star coating, there is also cinematic mode, which allows you to shoot photos or videos in a cinematic aspect ratio, creating the look of a film just with your phone. and there is a lot of room to play around with this feature. In addition, there's also Zaya's natural color, which allows your phone to capture photos with colors that closely resemble the real world. I only turn it on when I need to, since I still prefer more vibrant photos. Last but not least, the iconic Zaya's portrait mode. Basically, you have these 5 distinct styles of portraits to choose from, and each of them has a different characteristic to the background blur of an image. Honestly, I would recommend anyone who hasn't played with this feature to take a look at the Zaya's portrait mode. Maybe you will fall in love with it. Next, number 5 on the list, we have the fingerprint sensor, but it's just a fingerprint sensor. How could the fingerprint sensor be interesting? Well, here's how. Remember the last time you registered your fingerprint on your device when you had to tap the scanning area multiple times to get an accurate read? And sometimes the fingerprint sensor just stops working when your hand is very wet or off by a little bit. Well, with the X80 Pro, you just have to press the scanning area once and voila, it's done. And if you take a look at the scanning area, you will realize how big it is. So fingerprint being off by a little, no problem. Wet hands, no problem. Your phone unlocks just like that. What's more, you can further customize the icon, the animation, and the way your home screen comes in when you unlock your phone. And this is something which I think others overlook. It's like stepping into your car or your home where you want to feel at home and welcome to keep the whole experience interesting, and this phone does that. Next, performance and battery life. As Vivo's 2022 flagship device, the X80 Pro has the latest Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 inside, as expected with 12 GB of RAM, meaning that there is no need to worry about performance. You can play all your favorite games on this phone, even one of most demanding games out there. To power this monster chip inside, we need a powerful battery, and I'm glad that Vivo has put a bigger battery in the X80 Pro in comparison to last year's X70 Pro Plus. The capacity has gone up from 4,500 mAh to 4,700 mAh, and the maximum charging power has increased from 55 watt to 80 watt, which according to Vivo means that you can fully charge your phone in 35 minutes, which is handy if you are always on the go. Number 7, the display. This phone features a 6.78-inch AMOLED display with a 120Hz adjustable refresh rate, which puts it at the top tier of mobile display screens. The phone bumps up the refresh rate when you are scrolling through apps or photos to create a smoother experience, and lowers the refresh rate when you are viewing something static. However, by default, the phone only reaches 120Hz when swapping between app pages and maximizes at 60Hz for all other activities, meaning that you have to manually select 120Hz in the setting page to unlock the full potential of the display. Finally, the design of the phone. In comparison to last year's X70 Pro Plus, they look almost identical to each other, except the camera module. Honestly, if you didn't tell me this is the predecessor to the X70 Pro Plus, I would think this is another new product line from Vivo. Well, I'm not a huge fan of the design of the camera module. The glass panel does serve as a nice mirror for you to check your appearance while out and about. So here are the 8 things that I find very interesting about the X80 Pro in comparison to other phones. If you want to know more about how the X70 Pro Plus performs, click here. And if you want to see reviews of other recent smartphones, click here. And as always, for tech and gadgets, we've got you covered. This is Annalise, over and out.